Janet Collins was used to being the center of attention. At 25, she had everything most girls could only dream of: followers, luxury, and fame. But as she lay under the cold fluorescent lights of a Manchester hospital, she realized she had spent her youth chasing things that never truly mattered. Her heartbeat monitor beeped steadily, the only reminder that she was still here, barely. 3 surgeries in 2 weeks had drained her, not just of strength, but of ego. Gone were the designer heels and gold bracelets. In their place, pale hospital sheets and a wristband with her name, Janet Collins. Dr. Olivia Grant entered quietly, clipboard in hand. "Janet, how are you feeling today?" Janet forced a smile. "Like I've been hit by karma," she whispered. The doctor sighed, used to patients who joked to hide fear. "We'll try to make you comfortable. The next few days will be important." As the doctor left, Janet stared out the rain-streaked window. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about her reflection or her followers. She was thinking about regret. And one name kept echoing in her mind: Eric Thompson. Eric had been her literature teacher in college, calm, patient, always trying to make her see that arrogance was a fragile crown. She had mocked him once, calling him a dreamer with chalk dust. Now he was a billionaire tech mogul who used his wealth for charity and innovation. And she was a patient counting her days. Emily Shaw, her nurse and best friend, entered carrying a tray. "Soup time." Emily smiled gently. Janet smirked weakly. "You really think soup fixes a dying influencer?" "Maybe not," Emily replied softly, "but kindness might." That night, Janet scrolled through her phone, watching old videos of her younger self: parties, shopping, men, champagne. The girl in those clips looked invincible. Now she looked like a ghost of her own past. Her heart monitor beeped faster for a moment, not from pain, but from realization. If she died tomorrow, what legacy would she leave? Scandals. Waste. Lies. No meaning. No change. She whispered to herself, "I need to do something before I go." The next morning, she told Emily, "I want to talk to Eric Thompson." Emily blinked in surprise. "The billionaire? Your old teacher?" Janet nodded slowly. "He's the only one who can help me fix what I broke." Later that day, Eric received the message from the hospital. When he read her name, he froze. Janet Collins, the girl who once laughed at him, now wanted to see him before she died. He didn't know why, but something inside him whispered, "Go." By evening, his black car pulled into the hospital parking lot. The man who once taught literature now walked the halls of mercy, a billionaire visiting a dying girl who once mocked him. He entered her room slowly. Their eyes met. Time paused. "Eric," she whispered, voice trembling. "I'm here, Janet," he said softly. Janet took a shaky breath. "I need you to help me spread a message before I go. I want to show the world what living wrongly truly costs." Eric's face darkened with concern. "What do you mean, Janet?" She smiled faintly. "My last wish. Sometimes the people we least expect to teach us become our final teachers." The hospital room was silent except for the rain tapping against the window. Eric Thompson stood beside Janet's bed, hands tucked into his coat pockets, studying her face. He remembered that same face years ago, confident, unbreakable, mocking him in class for being too old-fashioned to understand life. Now, that same girl looked like a fragile ghost of herself. "Eric," she said softly, her voice raspy, "you must think I'm pathetic." He shook his head slowly. "No, Janet. I think life finally showed you what it shows all of us, that it's shorter than we ever expect." Janet gave a small, sad smile. "You were right about everything, you know. The parties, the fame, the lies." Eric pulled a chair closer and sat beside her. "I didn't come here to hear apologies, Janet. I came because you said you wanted help." Janet nodded weakly. "I do. I'm dying, Eric. My body's failing. But before I go, I want to do something real, something that matters." Her fingers trembled as she reached for her phone on the side table. "I want you to help me share my story. Not as the glamorous girl I used to pretend to be, but as the woman who paid the price for it." Eric studied her for a long moment. Janet, you understand what that means? Once you share this, the world will see everything. Your mistakes, your pain. I know, she whispered. That's the point. Maybe some other girl will see it and stop before she ruins herself too. He nodded slowly. For years, Eric had invested millions into education programs, youth mentorship, and digital ethics campaigns. But this was personal. He saw in Janet the broken reflection of a generation chasing illusions. And maybe this was his chance to help her find redemption. That evening, Eric called his media team from the hospital lounge. I want to launch a new awareness campaign, he said firmly. We'll call it The Real Me. It'll feature real stories about the consequences of reckless living, addiction, social media pressure, self-destruction. His assistant hesitated. Sir, are you sure about this? Using an influencer's downfall might. I'm not using her, Eric cut in. I'm honoring her courage. Back in her room, Janet was rewatching her own old videos again. She laughed bitterly as she saw her younger self tossing champagne in a club. Look at me, she murmured. I thought I was living. I was just escaping. Emily entered quietly. He's still here, you know. He hasn't left since you asked for him. Janet's eyes softened. He's kinder than I deserve. The next morning, Eric returned with his tablet. I wrote something, he said, sitting beside her. It's a draft, your story. Read it. Janet scrolled through his words. Her eyes filled with tears. He hadn't written about scandal or shame. He'd written about a girl who lost herself in the noise of the world and found her truth when everything else fell apart. She looked up at him, voice trembling. You made me sound human. You are human, Janet, he said softly. That's what people need to see. That afternoon, they filmed her first video. No filters. No makeup. Just the truth. Janet sat upright in bed, for still attached, and spoke directly to the camera. Her voice shook, but her words were powerful. I used to think fame was love, she began. But fame doesn't hug you when you're dying. People do. And I wasted too many years pushing them away. The video went live that night. Within hours, it exploded across the internet. Millions watched, thousands commented. Some mocked her, others cried. But most thanked her for being brave enough to show the truth. As the view count climbed, Eric sat beside her bed, holding her hand. See what you started, he whispered. Janet smiled weakly. Maybe I finally did something good. Her heartbeat monitor beeped softly. For the first time in years, she felt peace. But then, as the room dimmed and nurses changed shifts, Eric's phone buzzed. It was a message from his PR director. Sir, you might want to see this. There's a video leak about Janet's past scandals. It's resurfacing. Eric's face hardened. The internet could be cruel. And he knew this peace might not last. He looked over at Janet, now asleep, fragile as glass. He whispered under his breath, You've done your part. Now it's my turn. Eric steps into a world of media chaos, determined to protect Janet's final message, but what he discovers next will test his own beliefs about redemption and truth. When the truth finally comes out, it doesn't ask if you're ready. It simply burns everything that's false. Eric Thompson didn't sleep that night. He sat in the hospital lounge, the rain still whispering against the glass as he scrolled through his phone. Social media had turned into a battlefield. Half the internet praised Janet as brave. The other half tore her apart with old clips and headlines, reminders of who she used to be. He saw her face trending on every platform. Hashtag Janet Collins Truth. Hashtag Fake Redemption. Hashtag The Real Me Challenge. Eric sighed deeply. The world loves to build heroes just to break them again, he muttered. In the morning, when he walked into Janet's room, she was awake, smiling faintly despite her exhaustion. Did it work? She asked, her voice soft but hopeful. Eric hesitated. It did, but not everyone sees your heart, Janet. Some only see your past. She nodded slowly, as if she expected that answer. I guess that's fair, she whispered. The past doesn't disappear just because we regret it. Emily entered with a breakfast tray and forced a smile. Your video hit 20 million views overnight, she said. Janet blinked in disbelief. 20 million? Emily nodded. Half the hospital staff have seen it. People are talking about change, Janet. Real change. But just as hope filled the air, a sharp knock came on the door. A young man entered, Nathan Reed. Janet froze. Nathan, her ex-boyfriend and former partner in chaos, now stood in the doorway, his once cocky smirk replaced with tension. Hello, Janet, he said quietly. You've been busy. Eric frowned, instinctively stepping closer to Janet. Nathan, she whispered, her tone fragile. Why are you here? He shrugged, walking in. Because your little sob story is trending, and guess who people are dragging into it? Me. Eric's jaw tightened. Watch your tone. She's recovering. Nathan smirked. Recovering? She's rewriting history. That's what she's doing. Janet's eyes filled with tears. Nathan, please. I'm not blaming anyone. I just wanted people to know what this life cost me. Nathan scoffed. Oh, come on, Janet. We both loved the spotlight. You think one video makes you a saint. Eric spoke firmly. Enough. She doesn't owe you anything. Nathan's eyes flickered, a mix of guilt and bitterness. You're right, he muttered finally. But she owes herself the truth. After Nathan stormed out, Janet's hands shook. I shouldn't have let him in, she murmured. Eric placed a comforting hand on hers. Don't let his anger drown your message. People like him, they don't understand what courage looks like. Janet looked at Eric, eyes glistening. Why are you so kind to me? I treated you horribly. He smiled faintly. Because you're not the same girl anymore. Meanwhile, online chaos spread. News outlets began debating Janet's motives. Was she genuinely remorseful or seeking sympathy? Eric knew they had to act fast before her message was buried under scandal again. He contacted his PR head. Set up a press statement. I'll speak for her myself. That evening, Eric stood before reporters. Cameras flashed. I'm here today, he began, because a young woman taught me something powerful. Redemption isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. He spoke of Janet's courage, her fight against judgment, her hope to warn others about the emptiness of living for attention. By the time he finished, the crowd was silent. The next day, when Janet saw the broadcast replay, she cried quietly. He defended me, she whispered. After everything I did. Emily smiled gently. He sees who you are now, not who you were. Janet stared at the screen, voice trembling. He believes in me more than I do. Later that night, Eric visited her again. I meant every word, he told her softly. Janet looked up, her eyes tired but full of gratitude. Eric, if I don't make it, promise me something. What is it? Promise you'll finish what we started. Help people see the truth before it's too late. He nodded, his voice low but steady. I promise. They sat in silence for a long time. The rain outside had finally stopped. But in that calm, a deep truth settled between them. Sometimes the greatest impact comes from broken people who choose to heal others. Janet's message begins to change the world, but as her health worsens and public pressure rises, Eric will soon face a devastating choice between honoring her privacy or immortalizing her story forever. Janet woke to the soft hum of hospital monitors, sunlight filtering through the blinds. Eric was already there, reviewing footage of her campaign video on a tablet. Her story was spreading like wildfire, reaching corners of England she never imagined. Yet something in his expression made her pause, worry. You look tired, she whispered. I didn't sleep, he admitted. Some people are reacting badly. Janet frowned. Badly? Eric scrolled through his tablet, showing a barrage of angry comments, gossip, and online attacks. Some think you're faking this redemption. Some are digging up your old life to smear you further. Janet's hands trembled. I wanted to help people, not become a spectacle. Eric reached for her hand, firm yet gentle. Janet, what you're doing matters. People will misunderstand. But the ones who need to hear your story will hear it. She exhaled slowly, tears brimming. I don't have much time, Eric. I feel it. Emily walked in with a small stack of letters, messages from strangers touched by Janet's honesty. Janet glanced at them, surprised. People actually care? Emily smiled. They do. And you're helping them rethink choices, like you said you wanted. Janet nodded, a faint smile appearing. Then maybe my mistakes weren't useless. Eric paused, glancing out the window at the city below. Janet, I have an idea, he said slowly. What is it? He tapped the tablet, showing a concept for a digital platform called The Real Me. Your story could be the start of something bigger. Stories like yours, honest and unfiltered, could educate young people before they make the same mistakes. Janet's voice shook. You'd let me do that? Even if I'm not perfect. Eric smiled. You don't have to be perfect. You only need to be real. For the first time in weeks, Janet felt purpose beyond herself. She wanted to be remembered not for her beauty, arrogance, or reckless lifestyle, but for the lessons she could leave behind. That afternoon, Eric organized a small filming session inside the hospital. Janet sat on her bed, sharing her story without makeup or filters. Cameras captured every word, every pause, every tremor in her voice. Her honesty was raw, her vulnerability magnetic. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Eric's assistant discovered something alarming. An anonymous online account was planning to leak private medical records of Janet. This could ruin everything, Eric muttered, reading the threatening message. Janet, overhearing, looked frightened. What do they want from me? Not just you, Eric said. They want to weaponize your story against you. Determined to protect her, Eric made a bold decision. We'll keep filming, but only inside this hospital. No outside locations. I'll handle security. No one touches your privacy. Janet nodded, grateful yet aware that her message's impact might be limited. She whispered, It doesn't matter. If even one person learns something from me, it's worth it. Night fell, and the hospital grew quiet. Janet lay back, exhausted but peaceful. Eric pulled up a chair and began reading messages from young people inspired by her honesty. She's changing lives, he whispered to Emily. Janet stirred weakly. Then, it's working. But deep down, Janet knew her body wouldn't last much longer. She didn't fear death. She feared leaving her message unfinished. Eric, sensing her worry, squeezed her hand gently. We'll finish it. Together. Janet smiled faintly, eyes closing. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Suddenly, a nurse rushed in. Dr. Thompson. You need to see this. A video from Janet's past just went viral again. Eric stood quickly, heart sinking. The past was circling back. And now, he would have to decide. Protect her from the storm, or let her story shine in full, consequences and all. Janet's past threatens to overshadow her final message. Eric must navigate a dangerous media storm while keeping her safe, but what he uncovers next will test both their courage and the meaning of true redemption. Janet had barely slept. The morning sunlight fell on her pale face, but she looked smaller somehow, fragile in her hospital gown. Eric was already in the room, scanning his laptop with that calm, determined expression that always made her feel protected. Her video had gone viral again, but not for the reasons they had hoped. Eric, what's happening? She asked quietly. He turned the screen toward her. Old clips of her partying, laughing, and flaunting wealth were resurfacing, edited maliciously to make her look selfish and careless. The hashtags were cruel. Hashtag fake redemption. Hashtag scandal queen. Hashtag Janet exposed. Janet's hands trembled. I thought people would see the truth. My story, my pain. Eric knelt beside her, voice calm but firm. They will. But people who profit from drama will always try to distract from the real message. We have to focus on the ones who matter, those who want to learn from you. Emily entered, carrying her tablet. Dr. Thompson, you need to see this, she said. On the screen was a trending comment from a young woman. I was about to make the same mistakes as Janet. Seeing her story, it stopped me. Janet's lips quivered. People are listening. Eric made a decision. We'll fight fire with truth, he said. We'll release a second video. One that addresses the rumors directly, shows the pain behind your choices, and proves that honesty matters more than perfection. Janet nodded, summoning courage she didn't know she still had. Do it, she whispered. They filmed again that afternoon. Janet's voice was weaker, but more authentic than ever. I have made mistakes, she began, looking directly into the camera. But my choices don't define me. My honesty does. If you are watching this, please learn from me. Don't wait until it's too late. Hours later, Eric watched as the new video went live. Within minutes, comments began flooding in, support, tears, gratitude. The tide was turning. Even those who had doubted her honesty now paused, reading every word carefully, seeing the woman behind the mistakes. But the reprieve was short-lived. A major tabloid published a scathing article spinning her story as a stunt for sympathy. The headline screamed, "From party girl to saint?" Janet Collins' redemption campaign questioned. Janet's chest tightened. "Why can't they see?" she whispered. Eric placed a firm hand on hers. "They're not meant to see yet. Focus on the ones who do." Emily tried to lighten the mood. "Look at the other side. Hundreds of comments praising you, thanking you for the honesty. People are actually changing." Janet smiled faintly, tears brimming. "I never thought I'd leave something good behind. Not like this." Eric leaned closer. "We need a plan for the media storm. Interviews, controlled releases, maybe even testimonials from people whose lives you've touched. That will drown out the negativity." Janet nodded, weak but resolute. "Then let's do it. I don't care about me anymore, just let the message reach them." By evening, they began collecting testimonials. Young people, once reckless, shared their stories after seeing Janet's first video. Some cried, some confessed mistakes, and some made promises to change. Janet listened, her heart swelling with a fragile kind of pride. Yet deep inside, Janet felt the weight of her own mortality. "Eric," she whispered in the quiet hospital room. "Yes," he replied. "I don't know how long I have." He squeezed her hand. "Then we'll make every moment count." The next morning, a journalist called, requesting an in-depth interview. Eric hesitated. "Janet, are you ready?" She nodded weakly. "Yes. If my story can prevent even one person from making my mistakes, it's worth it." As Janet shares her story with the world, Eric discovers a new threat. Someone from her past is planning to sabotage her campaign entirely. The countdown begins. Protect her legacy or risk losing it all. The hospital was quieter than usual. Janet rested in her bed, pale and fragile, her breathing shallow but steady. Eric stood beside her, reading emails on his tablet, frowning. A new wave of threats had arrived overnight. Anonymous messages warning of leaked medical records, doctored clips, and even fake scandals claiming she had exploited her illness for fame. Janet's eyes fluttered open. "Eric, it's happening again, isn't it?" He nodded slowly, voice steady. "Some people will never stop digging. But we'll fight this together." Her lips trembled into a weak smile. "I trust you." Emily entered, carrying a stack of letters from viewers inspired by Janet's story. Janet glanced at them, her eyes softening. "People really are listening, aren't they?" she murmured. "They are," Emily replied. "Your story is saving lives, Janet." Eric's tablet buzzed again. It was a video, someone claiming to have evidence of Janet's past schemes. The footage was carefully edited, twisting her old reckless behavior into lies about exploitation. Eric felt a surge of protectiveness. "This ends now," he muttered. Janet sat up slightly, voice trembling. "Eric, I can't face more scandal. My body, I don't have the strength." He took her hand gently. "You won't have to face it alone. We'll control the narrative, share the truth before lies spread." Her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you for everything." Eric devised a plan. He called his media team, instructing them to release a controlled, honest statement directly from Janet, addressing the lies head-on. He also set up private security around her hospital room, no one in or out without approval. "This is our battlefield," he told Emily, "and she's our general." Meanwhile, Janet began writing a personal letter for her campaign, a raw, honest message she wanted to send out if her condition worsened. Her hand shook, but each word was deliberate. I don't want people to remember me for my mistakes. I want them to remember the lesson. Later that evening, Eric watched over her as she rested. Her breathing was uneven, and the monitors beeped steadily. He whispered, "You've done so much already, just hold on a little longer." Janet opened her eyes faintly. "I'll try you for them. For the people who need to hear the truth." Suddenly, the hospital security alerted him. Someone was trying to access Janet's room without authorization. Eric acted immediately, confronting the intruder, a journalist who had been secretly filming outside her hospital room. "You're not allowed in here," Eric said firmly. The journalist smirked. "The world will want to see her, whether you like it or not." Eric's jaw tightened. Not like this. Not when she's vulnerable. Back in her room, Janet clutched the blanket, heart racing. "Eric, I'm scared," she whispered. He leaned close, whispering, "I know, but we're turning fear into strength. Your story will survive, no matter what." The next morning, the second controlled video went live. Janet spoke calmly, frail but clear. "I am not perfect. I have made mistakes, and I have suffered for them. But every day, we can choose to be better than yesterday. This is my truth." The video spread rapidly, counteracting the malicious edits. For the first time, Janet felt a sense of real accomplishment. But even as hope returned, Eric received a chilling message. It was from someone claiming to know secrets about his past, a warning to back off or risk exposure. Eric stared at the message, realization dawning. Protecting Janet might cost him everything he had built. The world is now watching Janet's every word. Eric must protect her final wish while facing threats that could destroy both her message and his reputation. The storm is coming, and no one knows how much Janet can endure. Janet had barely slept. Her breathing was shallow, her body weaker than the day before. The monitors beside her bed beeped steadily, but each sound echoed her fragility. Eric sat in the chair beside her, silver hair catching the morning light, scanning the news feeds and social media comments for any sign of escalation. The storm had arrived. Every tabloid, blog, and social media platform was dissecting her story. Some praised her courage. Others mocked her. But now the malicious edits had been reposted, framed as evidence that her redemption was staged. Eric clenched his jaw. Janet stirred weakly, sensing his tension. "Eric, what is it now?" "They're attacking you," he said, voice low. "Twisting your story, questioning your intentions, making it personal."
She shivered.
"I can't. I don't think I can handle more." He squeezed her hand. "You won't have to face it alone. I'm here. Always." Emily entered, looking both worried and determined. "Dr. Thompson, someone tried hacking the hospital servers," she said. Eric's heart raced. "They want access to her medical records. We need a full lockdown." Janet's eyes widened in fear. "Why would anyone care about that?" "Because," Eric said grimly, "some people profit from ruining lives like yours." Eric called his security team. "All external access is blocked. No one enters or leaves Janet's room without authorization. I want CCTV monitored 24/7. Emily nodded. "I'll stay with her, too." Janet smiled faintly. "You both protect me so fiercely. I don't deserve this." Eric shook his head. "You deserve honesty. And we'll make sure the world sees the truth, your truth." The day dragged on. Janet tried to rest, but the constant notifications, knocks on doors, and whispered rumors in the corridors kept her anxiety high. Her body trembled under the strain. Eric noticed every shiver, every shallow breath. "Janet,
I need you to rest."
you're more important than anything else right now." Late that afternoon, news broke. A major tabloid published a front-page story accusing Janet of exploiting her illness for social media attention. The headline screamed, "Influencer Janet Collins, fake redemption or desperate attention seeker?" Janet gasped. Emily held her hand. "Ignore it. It's lies. Focus on what we're doing." Eric's expression darkened. We need to respond immediately. Controlled, honest, undeniable. Eric called a live broadcast segment for later that evening. Janet would speak directly to the public, addressing the lies with calm honesty. Though frail, she nodded. I'll do it if it helps them understand the truth. He smiled faintly. It will. More than you know. During the broadcast, Janet spoke softly but clearly. I am not perfect. I have made mistakes. But I am human. I am sharing my story because I want others to learn from it. Not for fame. Not for attention. For truth. Eric stood behind the camera, ensuring nothing distorted her message. Viewers watched, captivated by her vulnerability and courage. The response was immediate. Thousands of messages poured in, young people thanking her, sharing their own stories, promising change. Even some former critics began retracting accusations, praising her bravery. Janet smiled weakly. Maybe I can leave something good behind. But just as relief began to settle, Eric's phone buzzed again. A private tip had arrived. Someone had identified a former associate of Nathan, ready to leak sensitive information about Janet's life. Eric's heart sank. Protecting her legacy just became a life-or-death mission. That night, Janet drifted into a fitful sleep, her body exhausted from stress and illness. Eric sat beside her, watching over her as the city lights twinkled faintly through the rain-streaked window. He whispered under his breath, I promised I'd protect your story, and I will, no matter what it takes. The storm is no longer just online. Someone from Janet's past is actively plotting against her. Eric must act quickly to safeguard her final wish, even if it puts everything he's built in jeopardy. Janet had barely eaten, her body trembling from exhaustion and illness. The hospital room felt smaller than ever, the walls closing in as news of the malicious leaks spread across every platform. Eric never left her side, scanning the phone, tablet, and security feeds simultaneously. Every alert made his jaw tighten. Every incoming message threatened to undo all their hard work. Emily quietly entered, carrying more letters from young people inspired by Janet's story. She's helping them, Eric. Don't forget that, Emily whispered. Eric nodded, but didn't look up. I know, but that doesn't stop them from trying to destroy her. Janet's eyes fluttered open. Destroy me? They want to twist your story for profit, he said gently. We won't let them. At that moment, a loud alarm blared from Eric's laptop. Someone had breached one of the hospital's security cameras, a direct threat. Eric's heart pounded. They're trying to spy on us. I need to act immediately. Janet's eyes widened. Eric, please don't leave me alone. He smiled briefly. I won't. I promise. Eric instructed security to lock down the hospital wing. No one in, no one out. Monitor every exit, he ordered. Emily held Janet's hand as Eric worked. Do you think they'll stop? Janet whispered. Eric shook his head. Not until they see the truth. And even then, some never will. Meanwhile, Janet's body grew weaker. Her breathing was shallow, each inhale a struggle. Eric sat beside her, adjusting her pillows, whispering, just a little longer. Help them understand, help them see. Janet smiled faintly. Eric, I'm scared. I know, he said softly. But we're going to make this right. By evening, the threat became personal. A video surfaced online with a doctored audio clip, making it sound like Janet had admitted to faking her illness for attention. Eric's fists clenched. This ends tonight, he muttered. He called a live stream for that night, planning a direct response. Janet's frailty made it risky, but they both knew it was necessary. You'll speak the truth, he said softly. Clear, honest, raw. Nothing can be twisted if it comes from you. Janet nodded weakly. I trust you, Eric. Just don't let me break. The live stream began. Janet's voice trembled, but her words were steady. I am human. I have made mistakes. But my story is real, and my pain is real. I am not seeking sympathy. I am seeking understanding. Learn from me, and do not repeat my errors. The reaction was immediate. Thousands praised her bravery. Some apologized for doubting her. Young viewers shared messages about how they had changed their behavior because of Janet's honesty. For a moment, it felt like the world was listening. But then a shadow loomed. A former associate of Nathan threatened to release private documents exposing Janet's past dealings. Eric's jaw tightened. Protecting her legacy had become more dangerous than anyone anticipated. Janet, sensing his tension, whispered, "Eric, you're carrying everything." "I promise to protect your story," he said. "No one will destroy it. Not tonight, not ever." The night stretched long. Eric stayed by her side, monitoring threats, coordinating security, and preparing the next response. Janet slept fitfully, her body exhausted, but her spirit stronger than ever. In that room, the storm of the outside world raged, but inside, a fragile peace persisted, held together by trust, courage, and a promise. The threats are escalating, Janet's health is declining, and Eric faces a decision: protect her from exposure entirely or risk everything to ensure her final message reaches the world. The storm is far from over, and the next choice could determine life or death. Janet woke to the sound of a muted phone notification. Her body felt heavier than ever, each breath a labor. Eric sat beside her, reviewing security footage on his tablet. The leaks, the edits, the constant online attacks, it had been relentless. And now, a new concern had emerged. Someone close to them had compromised the hospital's digital firewall. Emily entered, face pale. "Eric, I think someone from your team leaked the secure files," she said quietly. Eric's eyes narrowed.
Who?
"I don't know yet," Emily admitted. "But the access logs are strange, like someone used your credentials." Janet's lips trembled. Why would they do this? Eric swallowed, jaw tight. Some people can't stand honesty. They profit from chaos. But we'll fix this. Eric immediately called a private meeting with his inner circle. "You're loyal to me and to Janet. If any of you are compromised, I will know. And I will act." Everyone nodded, visibly tense. He knew that one wrong move could destroy Janet's message and possibly her life. Back in her room, Janet tried to rest. Her body trembled from exhaustion and the stress of constant attacks. "I feel like I'm disappearing," she whispered. Eric held her hand tightly. "You're not disappearing. Your story will survive, Janet. I promise. We just need to weather this storm, together." Suddenly, a nurse approached with a concerned expression. "Dr. Thompson, there's a man here claiming he's an investigative journalist. He says he has new information about Janet's past." Eric's jaw tightened. "Not in here. Do not let anyone in." Janet's eyes widened in fear. "Please, not now." Eric nodded. "We'll handle this." Despite Eric's precautions, the man somehow filmed the hallway outside Janet's room. The footage leaked online, showing her vulnerable state, and triggered a fresh wave of attacks. Comments flooded in, cruel and manipulative. "She's faking it, all for attention." Janet's breathing became erratic. I can't take it anymore," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Eric quickly pressed the call button, and Emily rushed in. "Breathe with me, Janet," he said calmly, placing a hand over hers. Slowly, she inhaled, then exhaled. "Together," he whispered. "Always together." Later, Eric discovered the truth. One of his closest associates had been bribed to feed information to the media. Betrayal in plain sight. His heart sank. "Janet, someone I trusted tried to ruin your story," he said quietly. Her eyes filled with a mix of fear and resolve. "Then we fight back together." Eric acted immediately. He cut off all compromised access, changed passwords, and personally monitored every feed and message. Then he called a secure live broadcast, direct, unedited, unfiltered, to address the attacks. Janet, though weak, nodded. "I'll do it for them." During a live stream, Janet spoke directly into the camera. "I am human. I have made mistakes, yes. But every choice, every consequence, has taught me one thing. Honesty matters more than perfection. If my story reaches even one person and saves them from a path of pain, it is worth everything." The response was overwhelming. Thousands of viewers shared their own stories, messages of hope flooding in. Even some former critics recanted, praising her bravery. Janet smiled faintly. Maybe I can leave something behind after all. But Eric knew the danger wasn't over. Someone from her past, now empowered by the betrayal, was still plotting. Janet's life and legacy hung in the balance, and Eric realized the fight would only get more personal. Betrayal has struck at the heart of Janet's story. Her health is declining, her enemies growing bolder, and Eric must choose between full exposure to protect her legacy or risk losing everything, including Janet herself. Janet lay in bed, her face pale and drawn. Her breaths were shallow, each inhale a labor, her body trembling from exhaustion. Eric never left her side, eyes glued to multiple screens tracking social media, news outlets, and potential threats. The storm had grown bigger overnight. Emily entered quietly, carrying letters and messages from viewers inspired by Janet's story. "They're still listening," she said softly. Janet managed a faint smile. Even with all the chaos, someone is listening. Eric looked up from his tablet, expression tense. "And that's why we can't fail now." Eric had devised a bold plan, a fully controlled, secure live broadcast directly to millions of viewers, bypassing any media manipulation. Janet's voice would be the only one heard. It was risky, her fragile health could falter at any moment. But it was their last chance to secure her legacy. Janet's hands shook as she prepared to speak. "I'm scared," she whispered. Eric squeezed her hand. "I know, but this is your moment. Your story will survive, and it will change lives." She nodded weakly. "Then let's do it for them." The live broadcast began. Janet spoke with raw honesty, her voice trembling but clear. "I have made mistakes. I have suffered. I have been proud, reckless, and selfish. But my story is real, and it matters. Learn from me. Make better choices. Live responsibly. Please." Viewers responded immediately. Messages poured in, gratitude, apologies, stories of change. Even former critics were silenced, touched by her sincerity. Janet felt a fragile hope blossom. Maybe I've done something good. But Eric's relief was short-lived. A private tip arrived. Someone close to Janet's past intended to release sensitive information about her hospital condition to the media. He frowned. "We need to act fast, before it's too late." Emily looked at him nervously. "What can we do?" "We go on offense," Eric said firmly. "We protect her story by taking control." Eric arranged for an encrypted distribution of the broadcast to educational platforms, schools, and social organizations. This way, Janet's message would reach the people who needed it most, bypassing trolls, tabloids, and social media manipulators. Janet's frail face softened. "Then, my story will live on?" Eric nodded.
"Yes."
"And it will save lives." Hours later, the broadcast went live across multiple platforms. Young people, parents, and educators watched, sharing messages of change and hope. The tide had shifted. Even the tabloids, forced to report the truth, praised Janet's honesty. Exhausted but fulfilled, Janet leaned back, her body trembling. Eric held her hand, voice low. "You've done it. Your story will be remembered for the right reasons." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't." But deep down, both knew the battle wasn't completely over. Her health remained fragile, threats still lingered, and her story's impact would only grow if she survived long enough to see it. Eric tightened his grip on her hand. "No matter what comes next, we fight it together." Janet's message has reached the world, touching countless lives, but her health teeters on the edge. The next moments will determine whether she survives to see her legacy cemented, or if Eric must carry her story alone. Janet's breathing was uneven. Each inhale was a battle, each exhale a struggle. The monitors beeped urgently, displaying irregular heart rhythms. Eric sat beside her bed, tense, watching every flicker on the screen. Emily hovered close, her eyes wide with worry, her hands trembling as she checked the 4 lines. "Eric, I feel so tired," Janet whispered, voice barely audible. He held her hand tightly. It's okay. Just rest. You've done more than anyone could ever ask. Tears filled her eyes. I don't want it to end, not now. Eric swallowed hard, trying to hold back his own fear. I know. We're going to fight this, together. The hospital staff acted quickly. Doctors and nurses surrounded her bed, adjusting monitors, administering medications, and stabilizing her condition. Eric stayed at her side, whispering reassurances, every nerve on edge. Janet, stay with me. The world needs your story. You're stronger than you think. Emily pulled Eric aside. Dr. Thompson, her condition is worsening. If we don't act now, we could lose her. Eric nodded grimly. I know. That's why we need to prepare for everything. Janet overheard. Prepare for everything? Eric knelt beside her. I mean, we make sure your story survives, no matter what. You've touched too many lives to let this end without a mark. Janet's eyes closed, her body weak, but her mind focused. I want my message to reach them, she whispered. Eric's throat tightened. It will. I promise. We'll make sure no one distorts your story. Not now, not ever. The threats outside continued to escalate. Eric's phone buzzed with anonymous messages, claims of leaked hospital data, doctored videos, and personal attacks. He ignored them for a moment, focusing solely on Janet. Then he spoke, voice firm. Emily, start the secure broadcast distribution now. Every platform, encrypted. Her message must reach the world. She must not be silenced. Emily nodded, racing to set it up. Janet drifted between consciousness and sleep. I don't want them to forget me, she murmured weakly. Eric brushed a strand of hair from her face. They won't. Your story is stronger than anything they can throw at it. And I'll make sure everyone sees it. Suddenly, her monitors began beeping frantically. Heart rate dropped dangerously low. Eric's voice was steady but urgent. Stay with me, Janet. Focus on my voice. You're not leaving me now. Emily called for immediate intervention. Medical team rushed to stabilize her. Eric remained beside her, hand gripping hers tightly, whispering continuously. Hours passed in a tense blur. Finally, the team stabilized her. Her body was exhausted, but she had survived the immediate crisis. Eric exhaled slowly. You're still here, and we'll make every second count. Janet opened her eyes faintly, weak but resolute. Then, let's finish it. For them. The encrypted broadcast went live. Janet's frail voice carried her final message to the world. I am not perfect. I have made mistakes, but my story is real. Learn from it. Live responsibly. Be better than I was. This is my last wish. Let it reach you before it's too late. Responses were immediate and overwhelming. Messages of hope, gratitude, and transformation poured in. Even former critics recanted, praising her courage. Eric looked at Janet. Your story, it's alive. You've done it. Janet's eyes closed again, exhausted but content. Eric whispered, you've fulfilled your wish. Lives will change because of you. She smiled faintly, a final flicker of peace crossing her face. Janet survives the critical night, but her health remains precarious. Eric must navigate the next challenges, ongoing threats, media scrutiny, and ensuring her message endures, while facing the emotional toll of nearly losing her. Janet's breathing had steadied. The monitors beeped steadily, her fragile body slowly regaining strength. Eric stayed by her side, his eyes scanning every detail, medications, heart rate, and her overall condition. For the first time in days, there was a hint of calm. Emily entered with a tray of food.
Try a little soup, Janet.
You need your strength, she said softly. Janet smiled weakly. I feel a little better. Eric's eyes softened. Every bite counts. Every moment counts. For the first time, Janet felt hope that her body might recover enough to see the impact of her story. The encrypted broadcast had gone viral. Messages, letters, and social media posts poured in from around the world. Young people shared stories of change, educators praised her courage, and families wrote about the lessons they learned. Janet's weak smile widened. They listened. Eric pulled Emily aside. We need to ensure her message lasts beyond the storm. Archives, schools, foundations, everything must carry her story. Emily nodded. I can start organizing educational initiatives and public awareness campaigns immediately. Eric's expression hardened with resolve. No delays. Her story cannot be distorted or forgotten. Janet, feeling slightly stronger, began writing personal letters to young people who had reached out. Her handwriting was shaky, but each word was deliberate and sincere. I want them to know they can change, she whispered. Eric watched silently, pride and concern warring in his eyes. A few days later, the hospital received a delegation from local schools and youth organizations. They wanted to honor Janet's courage and ensure her message would be included in educational programs. Janet, though frail, nodded. If my story helps just one person, it's worth it. Eric held her hand tightly. You've already helped thousands. Eric coordinated with media outlets to publish a controlled documentary about Janet's life and final message. Every frame, every word, carefully curated to reflect the truth. No distortions, no manipulations, just honesty and hope. Janet's eyes glistened. I can't believe they're listening, really listening. Emily handed Janet a tablet with messages of gratitude from around the world. Tears streamed down her face as she read. Your story saved me. I changed my life because of you. Thank you for being honest. Janet whispered. Maybe I finally did something right. Eric, seeing her weak but determined, realized that her story's impact would outlive her physical presence. He made plans for educational programs, charity foundations, and awareness campaigns. Her voice will echo far beyond these walls, he said quietly to Emily. And it will save lives, Emily replied. As Janet rested, Eric reflected on the journey, from her pride and reckless behavior to this fragile but courageous moment. Her life had been transformed, her story shared, and her final wish fulfilled. He whispered softly, You've left your mark, Janet, and it will never fade. Janet is recovering, her story reaching millions, but the path to cementing her legacy fully remains, with challenges, threats, and the weight of her message still pressing on Eric. Janet had been moved from intensive care to a private recovery suite. Though frail, she now sat up in bed, reading messages of gratitude from around the world. Each story of change, each thank you note, filled her with a quiet pride. Eric remained by her side, tracking the reach of her encrypted broadcast and seeing the numbers grow. Millions of views, shares, and heartfelt responses. Emily entered with news from local schools. Eric, Janet's message is being shared in classrooms, youth programs, and community centers. Teachers are using her story as an example of responsibility and change. Janet's lips trembled with emotion. They're really listening. Eric nodded. Yes, Janet. Your voice is becoming bigger than any threat that tried to silence it. But the peace was short-lived. Eric received an encrypted tip. Someone from Nathan's old network was planning to release fabricated documents that could discredit Janet's story. He frowned. They're not done yet. This is bigger than I thought. Janet, sensing his tension, whispered, Then we fight them. Together. Eric nodded. Always together. Janet began participating in recorded interviews for educational campaigns. Though frail, her voice carried sincerity and authority. She spoke directly to teenagers about the consequences of pride, reckless behavior, and dishonesty. Her story became a tool for positive change, a living testament to her transformation. Meanwhile, Eric's team monitored social media and news outlets, countering fake news and disinformation. Every time a manipulated clip surfaced, Eric quickly released authentic footage, ensuring Janet's truth dominated the narrative. Her story cannot be hijacked, he said firmly to Emily. And it won't be, Emily replied. Janet's strength slowly returned. She managed to walk short distances in the hospital suite, each step a victory. Visitors, including educators and social workers, came to hear her speak in person. The ripple of her influence spread further, inspiring youth to reflect on their own choices. However, a new challenge emerged. A former tabloid journalist, intent on sensationalism, attempted to bypass Eric's security measures to leak private footage of Janet during recovery. Eric's jaw tightened. No one touches her. Not now, not ever. Emily nodded, activating additional cybersecurity protocols. Janet, overhearing, whispered, "Eric, don't let them win." He held her hand firmly. "They won't." Janet's story began reaching international audiences. Young people from different countries shared how her honesty inspired them to make better choices. Emails and videos poured in, showing families taking responsibility, schools initiating programs, and social organizations spreading awareness. Janet's eyes filled with tears. "I never imagined this." Eric reflected on the journey so far. From her prideful, reckless beginnings to this fragile yet inspiring figure, Janet had transformed not only her own life but the lives of thousands, maybe millions. He whispered to her, "Your story is now bigger than any threat. You've done what you came to do." But the threats were still real. Someone from Nathan's network was actively tracking every broadcast, every interview, and every message. Eric knew that the next steps would be crucial to ensure Janet's legacy remained untarnished. Janet's story is spreading across the world, inspiring change, but external threats remain. Eric must now plan a decisive strategy to secure her message permanently, before anyone can distort it or silence it again. Eric sat in his temporary command center, surrounded by laptops, tablets, and encrypted servers. The city lights of London twinkled faintly through the rain-streaked windows. Janet's recovery suite was nearby, but his mind was fully occupied with securing her story. The threats from Nathan's network had escalated: fake footage, doctored emails, even attempts to hack the hospital system. Emily entered, holding a stack of printed documents. "Eric, here's the latest intelligence on their network. They're more organized than we thought." Eric scanned the papers. "We need a proactive approach. No more waiting. Janet's story must reach the world without interruption." Emily nodded. "How do we start?" "We create an unhackable distribution network, encrypted, verified, and impossible to distort." Meanwhile, Janet, though still weak, wanted to help. I want to be part of this," she said, voice trembling. Eric looked at her, surprised. "Janet, you need rest." She shook her head.
No.
"If my story is to change lives, I need to see it through." He smiled faintly. "Then we do it together." Eric organized a secure live broadcast network to distribute Janet's message to schools, hospitals, youth centers, and online platforms worldwide. Every link, every video, is encrypted and verified. Even if Nathan's network attempted to interfere, they would not succeed. "This is our shield," Eric explained to Emily. "Nothing will distort her story." Janet participated in a recorded session, speaking directly to young viewers. "Your choices matter. Every action has a consequence. Learn from my mistakes. Live responsibly. Be brave enough to face your faults." Her voice was fragile but commanding, her sincerity resonating in every word. The network launched. Responses were immediate. Messages flooded in from teachers, parents, and teenagers. Her story was now protected, authentic, and unstoppable. Even former critics had to acknowledge her courage and honesty. But the threats were relentless. Encrypted tips revealed Nathan's network had escalated to legal maneuvers, trying to claim Janet's story as a fabrication for personal gain. Eric gritted his teeth. "We counter every attack, legally, digitally, publicly. No loopholes. No compromises." Emily nodded. "We can do this." Her story is bulletproof now. Janet, exhausted from recording and interviews, rested. She held Eric's hand, whispering, "Thank you for protecting my story and me." Eric squeezed her hand firmly. "Your story is safe, and it will change lives forever." Tears filled her eyes, weak but triumphant. "Then, I can finally rest." Eric and Emily worked tirelessly overnight, finalizing the distribution, ensuring global coverage, and reinforcing cybersecurity measures. By morning, Janet's story was fully secured, her legacy protected from distortion, her message reaching millions worldwide. Janet, now slightly stronger, watched the world's response with quiet satisfaction. "You've done it," she whispered. Eric shook his head gently. "No, we've done it together. Your courage made it happen." She smiled faintly, eyes closing. "Then my wish is fulfilled." Janet's legacy is now protected, her message spreading globally, but Eric knows challenges remain: personal threats, media scrutiny, and the final moments of Janet's fragile recovery. The next chapter will test their resolve emotionally and set the stage for the story's ultimate resolution. Janet's condition had stabilized further. She could sit up in bed for longer periods, read letters from viewers, and even smile without exhaustion overtaking her. Eric stayed by her side, monitoring both her health and the ongoing ripple of her influence across schools, hospitals, and online platforms worldwide. Her story, once fragile and vulnerable, was now a beacon. Emily entered with news. "Eric, Janet's story is being discussed on international news channels, social media campaigns, and educational conferences. People are inspired. Her message is changing lives." Janet's lips quivered. They're really listening. I can't believe it." Eric smiled faintly, pride shining through his exhaustion.
You've done more than you know, Janet.
"You've turned your mistakes into lessons for the world." Despite her growing strength, Janet occasionally struggled. She winced as a wave of weakness hit her, a reminder of how close she had come to losing everything. Eric noticed immediately. "Rest, Janet. Don't overexert. Your health is just as important as your story." She nodded weakly. "I know, but I feel. I need to see the impact with my own eyes." The hospital room became a hub of activity. Teachers, social workers, and youth volunteers visited, eager to meet the woman whose story had inspired thousands. Janet, fragile yet radiant, spoke softly about choices, consequences, and redemption. Her voice, though faint, carried the weight of authenticity. Eric worked behind the scenes coordinating global initiatives. Encrypted archives, educational programs, awareness campaigns, every detail designed to ensure Janet's legacy would be protected for generations. Emily stood beside him. "She's changing the world, and we're making sure it lasts." Eric nodded. "Her story is bigger than any obstacle we faced." Janet's health improved enough that she could take short walks within the hospital suite. Each step was celebrated, a small victory for her resilience. Visitors applauded softly as she moved slowly, demonstrating courage beyond her years. Eric supported her gently. "You're stronger than you realize," he whispered. Despite global recognition, external threats persisted. Nathan's network attempted minor attacks, releasing doctored stories and fake social media posts. Eric countered each attempt with evidence, authenticity, and immediate global communication. Janet, seeing the world respond honestly to her story, whispered, "Eric, we did it, they can't touch it now." He squeezed her hand.
No.
"They never will." Janet reflected on her journey. Pride, mistakes, illness, and finally redemption. "I never imagined I could make a difference," she whispered to Eric. He held her hand, emotion evident. "You did more than that. You changed lives, Janet. And you've saved countless others from walking the path you once did." As evening fell, Janet rested, her story having reached millions. Eric looked out at the city lights of London, knowing that while her health was fragile, her legacy was now immortal. He whispered, "Your voice will echo long after you're gone. And I'll make sure everyone hears it." Janet's recovery continues. Her story has reached the world, but the journey isn't over. Eric now faces the emotional challenge of guiding her final steps while ensuring her message is immortalized. Janet's health continued its slow but steady recovery. She could now sit for longer periods, engage in deeper conversations, and even answer questions from international students via secure video calls. Eric watched her closely, proud of how far she had come, yet aware of the fragility that remained. Emily handed Janet a tablet filled with messages from viewers in different countries. Look, Janet from the US, Canada, Nigeria, Japan. Your message is reaching far beyond our expectations. Tears filled Janet's eyes. I never imagined my mistakes could help so many people. Eric smiled faintly. It wasn't your mistakes, it was your honesty and courage that made the difference. Schools began implementing Janet's story into ethics and responsibility programs. Teachers praised her authenticity, using her experiences as lessons on pride, consequences, and redemption. Janet, frail but determined, spoke directly to students via secure video calls. Learn from my mistakes. Be honest, brave, and compassionate. Every choice matters. Meanwhile, Eric finalized plans for the Janet Legacy Foundation. The foundation would distribute her message globally, provide educational resources, and fund initiatives to prevent reckless behavior in youth. Emily assisted, meticulously reviewing logistics, ensuring no loopholes could undermine the initiative. Nathan's network attempted minor interference, a fake story here, a doctored clip there. Eric intercepted every attempt, releasing verified information within hours. Janet watched from her bed. Eric, it's like they've finally realized they can't stop us. He squeezed her hand. Exactly. Your story is stronger than their lies. As news of Janet's recovery and initiatives spread, global recognition followed. Journalists, educators, and youth organizations reached out to highlight her journey. Janet's story was now a case study in redemption and the transformative power of honesty. She whispered to Eric, I never thought my life could matter like this. He smiled softly. It does, and it always will. Janet's strength returned enough for her to participate in a symbolic ceremony. A small gathering of educators, students, and supporters celebrated the Janet Legacy Foundation and her message of responsibility and honesty. Eric stood beside her, quietly ensuring her safety, proud of how far they had come. Despite the recognition, Janet remained humble. I didn't do this for fame, she whispered to Eric. I did it so someone else wouldn't make the same mistakes I did. Eric nodded, eyes glistening. And because of that, thousands, maybe millions, will live differently because of you. The Foundation's secure network ensured her story would reach future generations. Schools, youth centers, and global educational programs incorporated her lessons permanently. Janet, frail but content, finally felt the peace of knowing her legacy was immortalized. Eric looked at her, quietly reflecting on their journey, from crisis to transformation, from fear to global recognition. Your story, it will echo for generations, he whispered. Janet smiled faintly, eyes closing. Then, I've done what I came to do. Janet's influence now spans the globe, but the final emotional and personal closure, her own reconciliation with the past and her remaining time, is yet to come. The next chapters will explore this emotional resolution, leading to a powerful climax. Janet lay in her bed, the room quiet except for the faint beeping of monitors. Her frail hands clutched a stack of letters, some from estranged friends, former colleagues, and distant family members. Each one carried memories she had tried to bury, mistakes, lost opportunities, and moments of pride that had blinded her to what really mattered. Eric noticed the tension in her eyes. You're thinking about them again, he said gently. Janet nodded. I need to make peace. If my story is to matter, I must face everything I avoided. Eric squeezed her hand. I'll be here. Every step. You're not alone in this. Janet began responding to the letters, apologizing for past actions, and expressing gratitude for those who had stood by her. Her handwriting was shaky, but each word was honest and heartfelt. I can't undo the past, but I can show that I've learned, she whispered. Some letters required phone calls. Janet's frail voice trembled as she spoke to former friends she had wronged. I was proud. I made mistakes, but I'm trying to make things right, she said. Tears flowed freely as forgiveness was offered in return. Eric stood silently nearby, watching her courage unfold. Emily brought in a tablet with video messages from people Janet had heard indirectly. You've changed their lives, Emily whispered. Janet smiled faintly. Then maybe some good can come from the pain I caused. Eric nodded. Yes, Janet. And it already has. Janet also wanted to meet Nathan one last time, not for confrontation, but to ensure the record of truth was fully clear. Eric prepared the meeting, ensuring security and transparency. When they met, there was tension, but Janet remained calm. I don't want revenge, she said softly. I only want the truth to matter. That's my final wish. Nathan, seeing her sincerity and the overwhelming global response, finally relented. I understand, he admitted quietly. Eric exhaled, relief washing over him. Thank you. This ensures her story remains untarnished. Janet's eyes glistened. Then, we can finally move forward. Janet's energy remained limited, but she now focused fully on her final project, a personal message to accompany all educational initiatives, reflecting on lessons learned, mistakes, and hope. Her words were direct, sincere, and deeply moving. Eric watched, proud and emotional. All of this, your story, your courage, it will live far beyond us, he whispered. Janet's lips curved in a faint smile. That was my wish. As evening fell, Janet rested, exhausted but fulfilled. Eric reflected on the journey, the struggles, the threats, the personal growth, and the final fulfillment of her wish. He knew the world would remember her story, and he had ensured it would be untouchable. Janet has confronted her past, reconciled with regrets, and completed her personal message. The final chapter will reveal the ultimate emotional resolution, the impact of her legacy, Eric's reflections, and the lasting message for the world. Janet lay in her bed, frail but at peace. The hospital room was quiet, save for the soft beeping of monitors. Eric sat beside her, hand in hers, watching as she read the latest messages from students, teachers, and parents around the world. Every message told a story of change, reflection, or hope inspired by Janet's honesty. Emily entered quietly. Eric, the global initiatives are expanding faster than anticipated. Schools, youth programs, charities. Everyone is sharing her message. Janet's weak smile flickered. They really listened. I did what I hoped for. Eric squeezed her hand. More than hoped for. You've saved lives, Janet. Your story will guide generations. A series of video calls connected Janet directly with students worldwide. She spoke with honesty and vulnerability. I've made mistakes, prideful, arrogant, reckless mistakes. But I've learned, and I hope you can, too. Live responsibly. Be kind. Face your truths. Her voice was weak, but every word resonated deeply. Eric monitored the secure broadcast, ensuring that her message could not be distorted. Every attempt by Nathan's network or other detractors was countered with verified footage and educational materials. Janet's story had become untouchable, a permanent beacon of truth and responsibility. Janet turned her gaze toward Eric. Thank you for everything. For believing, for protecting my story and me. Eric's throat tightened. You don't have to thank me. You did the hard part. You were brave when it mattered most. Tears glistened in her eyes. Then, my last wish is fulfilled. The Janet Legacy Foundation officially launched that day. A symbolic video message from Janet accompanied all programs, detailing her lessons and final reflections. Schools incorporated the material into curricula, youth organizations used it in mentorship programs, families shared it as a guide for life lessons. Her story had truly become immortal. Janet's body was exhausted, but her heart was full. She whispered softly to Eric, I think I'm ready to rest now. Eric nodded, holding her hand firmly. Rest, Janet. You've earned peace, and your story will live on forever. A faint smile crossed her lips as her eyes slowly closed, her breathing steady but gentle. Eric stayed beside her for a long moment, reflecting on the journey. From her prideful and reckless beginnings, through life-threatening illness and operations, to global recognition, redemption, and the fulfillment of her final wish. He whispered, Your voice will echo in every life you've touched and in every life yet to come. Emily joined him quietly. "She's gone peacefully," she said softly. Eric nodded, tears in his eyes, but a deep sense of fulfillment in his heart. Yes, and the world will remember her courage. The encrypted global network, the foundation, and all educational initiatives continued to distribute Janet's story worldwide. Her voice remained alive, guiding countless lives. Eric watched as emails and messages continued pouring in, proof that a life, when told honestly, can truly change the world. Janet's life has ended peacefully, but her story and legacy live on, inspiring, educating, and transforming lives worldwide. The next chapter will provide the emotional epilogue, showing Eric's reflections and the full realization of Janet's final wish. Eric walked slowly through the Janet Legacy Foundation headquarters, now bustling with activity. Staff, volunteers, and educators moved purposefully, all connected by one mission: to share Janet's story with the world. Her story, once fragile and threatened, had become a permanent beacon of hope and guidance. Emily approached, holding a tablet. "Eric, we just received another batch of messages from students in Asia, Africa, and South America. They're applying her lessons in schools and community programs." Eric smiled faintly. Every life she touched, every heart changed. That's her gift to the world. Emily nodded. "And it will continue to grow." Eric paused near a wall displaying a large digital montage of Janet's life. Childhood photos, school days, moments of pride and mistakes, hospital recovery, and global initiatives. Each image told a part of her story, and together, they painted a portrait of transformation, courage, and redemption. He whispered softly, "You've truly become immortal, Janet. Not in body, but in every life you've touched." Volunteers gathered in a meeting room for a moment of silence, honoring Janet's memory and her contributions to humanity. Eric spoke quietly. "She taught us honesty, responsibility, and the power of change. Her mistakes became lessons. Her courage became guidance. And her voice will never fade." Through the foundation, Janet's story reached millions more. Children in remote villages learning about accountability. Teenagers reconsidering reckless choices. Adults inspired to repair broken relationships and mentor others. Eric watched the numbers grow, the impact spreading further than he could have imagined. "She wanted this, and now it's happening," he said softly to Emily. Late that evening, Eric returned to Janet's hospital room, now a quiet memorial with photos, letters, and flowers. He placed a hand on her bedside frame, whispering, "Your life was short, fragile, but your story is infinite. I promise to protect it and to ensure every lesson you taught continues to guide the world." Emily joined him, quietly adding, "The world is listening, Eric. Her final wish is fulfilled." Eric nodded, a tear sliding down his cheek. "Yes, and it will continue to grow. Janet's courage, honesty, and strength will live forever." In the days and months that followed, the foundation expanded. Educational programs in multiple languages. Secure digital platforms distributing her message worldwide. Scholarships and mentorship programs in Janet's name. Her story, once threatened and fragile, became a permanent force for change. Eric finally allowed himself to smile fully, knowing Janet's last wish had not only been fulfilled but had grown beyond imagination. Janet's legacy is immortal, touching lives across continents. The final chapter will provide a closing reflection, a powerful call to action for the audience, and leave a lasting emotional impact. Eric stood at the Foundation's headquarters, looking out over a city alive with movement. Every screen, every classroom, every community project carried a piece of Janet's story. Her courage, honesty, and lessons were no longer confined to one life. They had become a ripple reaching millions. Emily joined him, holding a tablet showing hundreds of live connections from around the world. "Look at this," Eric, students, teachers, families, all engaging with her story. Eric's gaze softened. She wanted one thing, for her life to matter. And now, it matters to the world. Janet's personal recordings played softly in the background. "Learn from my mistakes. Face your pride. Live honestly. Every choice matters. Her voice, though no longer alive, carried the weight of authenticity, hope, and redemption. Eric listened silently, letting her words sink into every fiber of his being. He turned to Emily. This isn't just her story. It's everyone's story now. Every life touched is a life changed. Emily nodded. And the best part? It's still growing. People are sharing, learning, and taking action every day. Eric took a deep breath, looking directly into the camera in a staged voiceover segment. Voiceover-ready narration. Janet's story was fragile. It could have been lost. But courage, honesty, and the will to change made it immortal. Now, her life isn't just a story. It's a lesson. And her legacy isn't just hers anymore, it's yours. He continued, voice steady, eyes unwavering. Ask yourself, what will you do with the lessons you've heard today? Will you choose pride, ignorance, or will you choose responsibility, honesty, and courage? Every action, every choice, every day matters. Janet's life proves that change is possible, even after mistakes, even after pride. The question is, will you let her story guide you? Emily added softly, off camera. Join the movement. Share her story. Make your choices count. And help someone else change their life for the better. Janet's life wasn't perfect, but it became powerful. Let hers be your guide. Eric stepped back, letting Janet's words fill the room. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Your choices can ripple through the world. Don't waste a single one. Now it's your turn.
Take a moment.
Reflect. What will you change today? Share Janet's story, mentor someone, and make a choice you can be proud of. One action can ripple across the world, just like hers did. Your story starts now.